with me is Riddhi Hata. She is working as a manager in Agilicis, and she's also ex United Airlines and ex EY. So thank you, Riddhi, for joining us today uh, and helping us out with understanding more about audit planning.
Thank you
So
so much, Anurag. So, uh, hello everyone. It was a very quick and a very good introduction from Anurag about me. Uh, I'll just try and walk you through about more of an importance of audit planning and internal audit specifically. And we will just have a lot of, real life examples, but not related to the companies per se, but how planning helps us day in, day out. So I'll just move forward with a few of the agendas and the disclaimers what we have for the session today. So the agenda for today is what exactly planning is all about. Standards as per the Institute of Internal Auditors. What is the importance of planning when we are having the procedures for internal audit? The annual audit planning process, how does it move and how does it help the entire fiscal year to move in and move out? What are the major phases of the planning and how can we really work about it? How do we create an audit plan? We will just give you a little small demonstrations of the examples. How can we really create an audit plan? The present, affair we have like a COVID-19 impact. It is like how much planning gets impacted by these kind of adverse situations when we have. And we have few surprise today. So for examples for how the project plan work. So I'll just move ahead. Few disclaimers before we start on. This webinar is just for more of an academic discussion, just to have a healthy discussion between all the professionals of our. We are not trying to advertise anything. The presentation is not intended for any advisories. We are trying to document the topic, and every content is available on internet. You Google it, you'll find all the content. We're just trying to collaborate all the content which is relevant for this webinar right now. And it is right to say that one size doesn't fit all. We might address few of the topics which may not be a right fit for you and what you're doing right now, but we'll definitely try to address them in the end of the presentation with a Q&A. Me and Anurag will try to help you out in understanding what is the actual planning if there is some real-time scenario for that. We are just trying to do it for the presentation for the webinar, not for public circulation. Some do's and don'ts during our webinar, just try and keep the mute. And if you have any question answers, just try and use the Zoom chat box for that. We will not be discussing anything about company specific. If there are any public scenarios, we can come up to our section in the queue at the end. If you still think your questions are not being answered and you want to reach out to us, you can definitely contact me and Anurag on LinkedIn or on a Gmail. We're totally reachable. The templates which we are walking you through are very generic. They can be found on the internet and you can easily find everything on the Google, just a Google away. So the key takeaways from today's session would be generally understanding the importance of planning when you are panicked. So your planning works a little more better when you are in a situation like in very adverse situation. Today we have a COVID-19 where everything is remote. How planning helps in problem solving, the importance of planning, the more structured way of making a decision, and how can we increase the efficiency in risk management? What could be the impact of planning in the fieldwork of reporting? And planning helps in adverse situations like COVID-19, and that we can have a discussion on. So we just wanted to understand, in a broader picture, what planning is all about. So we have a, real-time scenarios. We are trying to do a lot of work-life balance. We want to go to gym, we want to go to work, we want our social life, we want to have enough sleep. But the struggle is real because we're not planned enough. So the Thomas Edison says, good fortune is what happens when opportunity meets with planning. You can only create a good fortune or when you're very focused or very well planned to say, okay, I am planned, I know how to control my situations. And once you are helping yourself, what does planning helps you do it? It gives you a set direction and set priorities to get everyone on the same page, because you can find people who are really not, on the same page or may have a different opinion. But with the planning, you can bring everyone on board. When you're executing your plan, everyone is already on board with you. This is to simplify the decision making in the future, because the adverse situation like this, COVID-19, company starts planning at the same moment, it may have a very, major losses, and it may impact a lot of economical crisis, which is actually happening right now. The planning also helps you to drive the alignment throughout the procedure and to communicate the message which is there. I'll just move forward now. The entire slide will be more, towards your internal audit and how do we plan when we are trying to do any internal audit project, assignment, or we're planning the entire year for our organization. Basic difference between an internal audit and external auditor is must to understand before we start, because we may have an audience who are an external auditor, or we may have an audience who are chartered accountant, may have a difference of opinion between internal audit and external audit. So the basic difference is our objectivity. Internal auditors, they have a varies according to the audit. They are more focused to report to management and the audit committee, whereas external auditors have a broader view. They are responsible to report the entire financial risk, other risks to shareholders, board directors, and audit committee. The standards are definitely different. Internal auditors generally work on IPPF, which is by Institute of Internal Auditors, US. And historically we work in a very different pattern. So I'll just move forward and explain you the IPPF, which is International Professional Practices Framework. They are established. The IAA provides internal audit professionals worldwide with authoritative guidance organized in the IPPF as the mandatory guidance and recommended guidance. The updated framework was introduced in 2015 July. Why do we actually need these standards to perform? Is because it provides the principle that represents the practice of an internal auditor as it should be. Until you have a frame, you cannot really pursue any systematic procedure of auditing. So it also fosters improve the internal audit process and operation. The standards also help you perform in a better way, identifying a better risk assessment, identifying a better way to look at the organization's performance. Establish the basis of evaluation of the internal audit performance is also one of the benefits when we have standards. I'll just move forward for the next slide. The Institute of Internal Audit Standard 2010 is being introduced specifically for planning. Now, what planning is all about, we have Chief Audit Executive, who is the key person who is handling the entire audit in an organization or an industry. When we go to systems like, when we have decision making or management is involved, we have a prioritization, which is totally on the organizational goals, or we are trying to sync as per the organizational goals prioritization. So the Chief Audit Executive must establish a risk-based plan to determine the priorities of the internal audit activity consistent with the organizational goals. To develop the risk-based plan, the Chief Audit Executive consults with the senior management of the board to obtain an understanding of the organization's strategy. Key business objectives are associate risk, risk management process. So the CAE must review the adjust plan as necessary in response to changes in the organization, business, risk, operation, programs, and system of the controls. The overall idea here to introduce a standard again is like we're trying to govern or function as per a framework. Without a framework, we may get lost in the mid of the audit. To analyze the objective, we may get lost. So the planning has 3 standards for 2010A1, A2, and C1. I'll just walk you through a little more about it and I'll provide you some real examples through that. So A1 says the internal audit active plan of engagement. When we say engagement, it could be a business, it could be a client. Must be based on the documented risk assessment. At least annually, the input of senior management on the board must be considered this process. So we will go a lot in detail about what risk assessment is all about. And I'll explain you about how can we document the risk assessment. A2, the chief audit executive must identify the consider expectation of the senior management, the board, the other stakeholders for internal audit opinions and other conclusions. So the CAE must have a total consideration of what management wants versus what our audit committee is looking for. And they have to come up with a solution to address all the risks in the organization. C1, which says the chief audit executive should consider accepting proposed consulting engagements based on the engagement's potential to improve management of risk and improve the organization's operations. Accepted engagement must be included in the plan. So this is more throughout, adding more value, improving the efficiency of the organization by having, mitigating the risk what we are facing right now. Next one, we are just trying to evolve more around how the audit process generally happens. So we have 4 levels in the internal audit planning process. First, we have to really provide a notification to the auditors, or the client or the management of the audit. We are trying to identify the area of the auditing. The identification of area can be through risk assessments, which was discussed in standard 2010A1. It can be an inherent risk. It could also prior results, financial results, which you file in, and your auditor's report. Your next is your audit planning, where you have to assess the risk which we have and the internal control. We are trying to identify the scope of the audit, objectives, criteria, approach, understanding of management concerns and inherent risk. We are also trying to identify the frequency of each of the control or the process we are trying to audit there. The audit calendar is the interesting part when we are trying to do an audit planning. Why is it interesting? Because you are trying to forecast the entire year on the basis of the risk categories which you have identified. And you may have an adverse situation in between, like COVID-19 is one of the examples. Your company is going through some economic crisis. You might have to make immediate shift. And as an internal auditor, the profiles are already very versatile and very evolving. So we have to be very prepared in terms of anything adverse situation happening. The audit preparation would also require examining the preparation of the audit results and the corrective actions, which could be the follow-up from the last year. Prepare and circulate the audit checklist and audit scope areas, which can be derived from your risk assessment survey. And you are providing an alert to the client before you start auditing them. There is a pre-audit meeting, which is being arranged with the client before we can start anything. Audit planning, risk assessment, what are the purpose of actually a risk assessment purpose and how much it is relevant for an audit planning. So the first, it establishes the purpose and it identifies risk. We have something to identify what we want to test. Second, measure the risk. The risk could be you have economic conditions, you have external risk, you have internal risk. The third would be prioritizing those risks and develop an audit plan and a project. This assessment is actually a key document to identify what you want to actually take up. You want to adapt few audit projects throughout the entire fiscal year. The fourth is review reports and the communication of the result. You are trying to identify a risk, you are trying to address those risks throughout the year, and at the end of the year, when a senior management or an audit committee requests you for what risks were being addressed and how the risks were being addressed, you give them the report. Okay, this is how we address these risks, and this is what our finding was. We have examples of traditional method of a risk assessment survey. So these were questionnaires which were earlier being used in an organization. Then we didn't have Survey Monkeys, we didn't have the online, assessment tools. We used to use a lot of Excel. Still, small and medium-sized organization use Excel. A large organization may go ahead and use a little softwares like Survey Monkey, and they try to identify the risk adversity accordingly. The risk questionnaire will always involve a low risk, a medium risk, and a high risk. As we see, the color combination, low is kept green, medium yellow, and high is always a red alert. If we get a data after a risk assessment survey that this is a high risk area, we really need to identify the, we really need to take a quick turnaround in addressing that risk. We have to put it our project plans accordingly. Now, again, we have identified a risk. Now we have to really project those hours throughout a year. What is the criticality of the risk and how to address it?
जब दो मेल ला दी ना कॉपी नीचे ने भेजा बाहर
Okay, so I'll just move forward. I would request you if you can mute your meeting right now so it will help all of us. Thank you. Okay, so we have an audit calendar. This is sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll just move forward. So this is our audit calendar basically. This is very interesting to design and have basic this planning area where you put every of your structured hours on month basis on the basis of the risk you've identified and what could be your exact design to put your audit calendar in place. So your planning and scoping is your first thing which you do in your audit calendar.
Request you if you could mute the participants. We can hear some background noise. I think Amar Shailendra, your thing is not muted, unmuted. So if you could mute.
Can we check that?
Yeah.
All right. All right, I'll just move forward with this then. The audit calendar is a crucial part. Again, I will try to restart on this. And this is an interesting exercise for the entire year. We are trying to do the, some part of it when we are trying to plan and scope our audit. Our scoping is identified by our risk assessment, inherent risk, or a last year audit results. So first is the plan engagement. Engagement here is more of a project or more of your business where you are aligned with if you're an industry. First is you have to create and maintain a project plan and engagement schedules around it. Then you have to determine the materiality, which is the criticality of the risk in the control. If it is material or non-material, does it has any value associated to it, or it's just an operational risk. Then we have to perform the FSLI, the risk assessment, which we have been discussing. We are trying to identify scope, which could be your key account. You have to look at Key account could be you want to see your financial statements, you want to see your accounts receivables, you want to see your treasury. The controls would be you want to see your segregation of duties are in place or not. You want to check what is the materiality, has the reconciliations been done, you have any unreconciled items which are being filed in. Locations and systems. So when we say locations, the more risk is when the organizations are into a different locations. The only way to have a key check is getting everyone on the same page, which is getting everyone on the same system. And the systems are supposed to be very restricted in terms of the environment which we are in. So you have to identify scope, understanding all these four criteria. We have to review the scopes with our external auditors, because external auditors are the consultants which have an overall picture to understand what do they want to see in the organization, or what do they feel is pertaining the risk in the organization. After we are planning the entire engagement, we plan the walkthroughs. So in walkthroughs, we are trying to understand from each process owners how the process is actually being executed. From scratch to the end, what are the process? And then we are trying to identify our risk areas there. So we have to understand process and controls. We have to update all process documentation in place. The requirement to do a process documentation update is because the entire fiscal year, that becomes your Bible to go and check what was the process deviation or what was the diversification that the current process owner took. You have to confirm which are the key controls, which are reports, and key spreadsheets and key reports. Identify key entity levels. That is very important, because there are a lot of risk with a multiple location entity, and we have to identify those entity level controls which are trying to mitigate the risk for the entire and not a particular location. You have to evaluate your design effectiveness. And then we move to the next one, which is define your test approach, which is your risk and control, determine the nature, timing, and extent of the control. So I'll just try and continue with this one. So define your, determine your nature, timing, and extent of the control testing, align approach and external auditors, develop tools and templates utilized for the field work. So this is more aligned towards how you want to test it. How do you want to go ahead with whatever the risk was identified, scope identified, you have identified, okay, every process narrative is fine, the entire process is updated, and we move and understand how can now pick process as per the criticality of the risk. If it is a high risk, we will try and test that first. Move to the next slide. So this is how your potential data looks like for an audit preparations. So if we have likelihood, we have a potential severity in rating. So it is like very likely, likely, unlikely, or rare. Rare and unlikely are the two lines till minor and moderate, which we don't really want to make it as a priority. When it shifts our focus towards the right side, which is the catastrophic and your very likely, these are the three columns which you have in extreme situation, you will immediately address that. We also have a few people would have gone through the heat maps. So these are somehow we quantify, okay, this is the area where is the high risk. So the red ones define our heat zones. The audit preparation or a data visualization is a key coming up in the market today. Why I kept this screenshots without any explanation is more of identify that a good graphics can make you read the data well. In the COVID-19 occupational risk score, we were just trying to analyze what was the annual income in $200 US and how this would get affected by it. So we were just trying to identify, and we found few dots, which was like more related to a healthcare and a non-care healthcare related people, and how many people have a risk of losing their jobs. So we have between 100K to 150K, we have computer network architects, we have lawyers, we have financial managers, marketing managers, which are in blues, have a high potential, highly risk, on losing their jobs, versus the healthcare people right now. They may retain their job because of the healthcare situations. So a data visualization for any audit preparation adds a lot of value in today's world to showcase and redefine and identify your procedure in a more vocal way than just being a little more writing stuff and just giving a lot of theory around it. A visualization is always a good tool to use. The planning checklist. We do have a planning checklist when we are trying to plan, and this can we go a little quick about it. So initial document request list, all policies, procedures, and everything has to be taken from your process owners and key stakeholders. Your key reports should be identified, which must be maintained in a very effective and efficient manner. The access to key application used in the process. Who all can access and what are the key application used in those processes. For example, if you are doing your financial reporting, there will be a financial reporting system in place in any organization who would have an access to the key people only. Not every employee can access the financial data. So description and listing of the master data of the process being audited, including all the data fields and attributes. Preparing for a financial planning meeting and with business stakeholders is important, because anything going through should be announced, pre-alerted to your stakeholders. You're preparing the audit programs, you have to have a process objective around the audit program. Why do you want to do it? What is your basis? So when a person asks you, or when a process owner counters you, what was your basis of providing the objective, you can always go and show the risk assessment survey. We have a data to give a back to it, and we can justify our own objectivity around the process risk. So process risk is nothing much, just identification of inherent risk or identification of a last year's audit report from external auditors, or our new risk assessment surveys which are being identified. Generally, in an industry, the high risk areas are your financial reporting, your accounts receivable, your accounts payable, your quote to cash, inventory. These are few of the high risk areas. Materiality totally depends on the organization's nature of business. There could be a business which have no inventory at all, but there could be a business which is completely on inventory. So materiality shifts from business to business. Control mitigating process risk. We have to identify the controls which are mitigating the process risk, and we have to declare in our checklist what would be our action to our mitigation strategy. Control attributes, including the attributes are more like the steps in the procedures, what you want to identify and test in a control. For example, in any of the financial statements, you want to see if it has been reconciled, it has been updated with the bank statements, yes and no. If there is any open unreconciled items, why was it? So for us, our attributes become, we want to verify our financial reporting, we want to verify our bank statement, we want to verify our imbalances which are getting reconciled or not. So the testing procedures for our controls to be tested during the audit, and that is also including in the planning checklist. You have a test procedures around it that, okay, in our attributes, we tested these 5 things. We checked particular accounts, we verified those accounts with our bank statements, or we checked our financial statements with our journals, our ledgers, and the P&Ls, and everything was being tested, and then we are trying to identify the audit around it. The audit program and planning review. Who are the key stakeholders are interested to review your program and a planning review? Your internal audit manager or senior manager, your chief audit executive, who is the highest ranking person in terms of reviewing and leading the internal audit team. Subject matter experts, which are required to understand each process, and management's main point of contact for the audit, that is the audit customer. Now, this is a very interesting topic. I have really been reading a lot of COVID-19 impact on the internal audit these days. This has been sourced from internet, and basically this is one of the PwC's great articles, which says why PwC is trying to analyze what could be your risk, and how can you prioritize your, existing plan, or how can you reshuffle your existing plan. So there are redirect your risk expertise to COVID-19 priorities. Now priorities have been shifted with the COVID-19 impact, who never was into anyone's agenda. It is a totally external risk which came up very abruptly, and it took over the entire economy to a different level. The crisis management and response should look at increased cybersecurity threats, greater network connectivity needs, and increased VPN or a mobile device usage as more people or employees are working remotely. Your data sharing, your data getting leaked is the biggest risk right now, and it can impact your company a lot. The workforce disruptions may go beyond health risk to possible impact on productivity, collaboration, and adherence to company policy. As employees who now work from home may face a new stress. We are working from home, and in India right now, we are locked down from like 2.5 months, or more than that, I'm sorry. And the stress level is new. The stress is, earlier the stress was we have a lot of traffic on the road. Today the stress is we are not even out of home. So this is a different level of stress which we are facing, and this is very new for everyone. For every age group, for every professional, this is a new stress. Operation and supply chains may face disruptions, possible declines in quality or availability, and a new third-party risk. So when we say a supply chain or operations, there were a lot of goods which were not being processed. Example, all your sites, shopping sites, which were completely off for a few days until there was a first relaxation in the deliveries. The entire food chain industry which were delivering was totally down. The shopping sites were down. So you have to really be very sure how the disruptions should be addressed during these pandemic times. Finance and liquidity challenges may arise due to revenue shortfalls, debt services, serving requirement, and rising customer credit risk. Excuse me. This may require changing SOX process and controls. Now, this is a big challenge for every organization. Your customer is not ready to pay you, but you have to run your day-to-day business. You have a customer credit risk which is going high, and there are processes which are changing processes in the SOX control, because the SOX controls are definitely one of the key controls when it comes to the financial risk and liquidity. Tax and trade, in dealing with the immigration issues, the implication of the shifting business or suppliers to the different jurisdiction, and the potential need to change the organizational structure. The tax and trade is totally government centric, and we are trying to deal with it, but with the sales going down, the tax and trade gets affected. The next one is the strategy and the brand may be affected by your response to the COVID-19 crisis, which may require changes to the long-term plans while defining your brand for coming years. And this is the new, and we are trying to adjust to this new prioritization. Now I'll hand over to Anurag Anurag will help us identify the, what all risk proposed project plans could look like in terms of planning and, just things around.
Sure. Thanks, Riddhi. Before that, since we were talking about COVID-19 risk, I would like to ask you one question which many people have. Is that suppose I am working in a manufacturing company or in a company which is into manufacturing. Now there are like let's say 10 different plants in 10 different parts of the country, and as we all know, like during an audit, uh, 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 you know, uh, in internal audit, we need to visit the plants, and then we need to conduct a walkthrough to understand the process. So now with this COVID and with the traveling restrictions on travel, now how will this walkthrough or the process understanding happen in these times?
My understanding to this, Anurag, is the travel freeze or the travel restrictions with in pertaining to the manufacturing. Some of the manufacturing plants were also closed during this time, and there was not a lot of progress happening in terms of manufacturing during the COVID-19 time. The management understands that risk, management is addressing that risk, and management wants to delay these walkthroughs and function and make a shift in that understanding. They cannot do anything right now. So
Yeah.
this is just a shift which is coming, and this is a very new thing that many people are postponing their risk assessment survey to the quarter 2. Just want to have a quarter 1 to stabilize and quarter 2 to have a more real picture of the risk. And I don't think so the manufacturing units can address this walkthroughs right now, because even they don't know what to do right now. So this is just a situation which can be answered as it comes to you.
Yes.
Hello?
Sure.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yes. Yes.
Is this Anurag? Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Hi,
Tarun.
Anurag. Tarun this side.
Yeah, Tarun.
Basically, I would like to add something here. Like we can also nowadays with like virtual meetings or virtual without visiting your plants, you can also verify the stock and inventory which was kept there at the plant through virtual through digital mode also. So this can be possible nowadays, because nowadays manufacturing companies are doing physical verification of their plants through video conference and like through this digital mode.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
agree
that's
with you, Tarun. But more of like manufacturing, when you have to do a stock take and all that stuff, I think that is more difficult to do it right now. It's more of you can take a walkthrough, but stock take is not possible. That's what I think.
Because I did video call also, right? So during that scenario, like we were also doing like sometimes it's quite difficult to visit the plant. So in that case, auditors were like doing video conference with the auditee, and they are like physical. At that time, they were like counting the stock through this video conference.
great if that can be done. I think that's the way in the future that these possibilities can be
Because
explored
nowadays
because
we have a multiple sources of like doing this video content. So people nowadays like without visiting the plants are like carrying out the audits. Because in my company also like we are currently not visiting, and we are like through doing audit through only just through these Webex and Zoom meetings.
yeah,
So
Okay.
presently like if we are opting this digital, so we can also opt in future
yeah,
also.
I mean,
That's an interesting
yeah,
idea.
because we can, a company can also save on cost because there is traveling cost, then there is
Yeah,
hotel
yeah.
expenses which are attributable to these stock takes and all. And if this can be done virtually, then company can also save a lot of cost. So maybe in future we could
See, this will
see.
if we can opt this type of like digitalization, so this will also like save your travel costs also, because travel costs, your TADA like cost for the auditors, staying costs, everything will get saved also, and it will be like a time consuming also.
Right, right. Thanks, thank you, Tarun, for
Thank
your
you, Tarun.
inputs. So, yeah, now we can move forward, I guess.
Sure, thanks, Anurag. So over to you.
Yeah. So we understood previously that how planning is important, and these are just a few examples that I have put in for a project plan for an internal audit. This is not industry specific, but that's so my model one is a diagnostic review. So what this means is that you understand the existing systems, uh, you go through the SOPs of the company, and try to understand each and every process. Also, you can have one meeting with the process owner and understand with them, or have like a walkthrough for one sample. Uh, then what you can do is you can make a design level issue listing, that what you feel is lacking in the design itself, and then the detailed internal audit charter, which will have the scope of work. So once you do a diagnostic, then you'll get to know what is critical for the company, and then you will be able to define the scope of the audit. So it's important with with regard to defining the scope of the audit. So you can go in this also. There are two options. You can take one critical process and have a diagnostic review and prepare the scope, or you can have the diagnostic of all the key processes beforehand, and then go ahead with preparing the audit plan for the year. So moving on to the next slide,
Anwar, I
that
just want to add, Tarun this side again. I just want to add here, like it's always better to have a kick-off meeting, right, before you start any audit, right? So
yes,
with the auditee, in that
yes,
case, people like used to do like they just explain the scope of audit as decided by the auditor. They never. It's very important that we should also take into consideration the pain areas of the auditee also, because we should understand in which area
right,
auditee want us to carry out the audit, right?
yes, yes,
Instead
exactly.
of so it's very important that before finalizing the scope of audit, you should consider the pain of the auditing.
Yes, correct, correct. That's why it's important to have a first one level discussion with the auditee also.
Yeah, because
So
there's a great possibility you are doing like you are covering X scope, right? And auditee wants you to like you should also cover Y scope. So it's always better to have a initial kickoff meeting with the auditee and consider the pain areas of the auditee.
right, right. And this is like the proposed project plan too. Now in this, what I have covered is like we can define a scope of the audit, that whichever are the processes that we will audit, and by defining this, even we can go in one more level of detail. Like for example, let's say in treasury, what all areas we'll see the bank reconciliation statement, or in fixed asset, what additional areas we can see, capitalization, write off, depreciation, and so on. And then this is like more into the defining the scope of the audit. And then what we can do is, after defining the scope, we can, according to the criticality of the process, we can decide the frequency, that in 1 year how many times the process need to be audited, and how much time it will take. And after that, we can accordingly we can incorporate in the audit plan. Now moving on to the next slide. It's these are again this is just an like just an example of a IA deliverable. So what a diagnostic report, which we talked about in the last to last slide, the model number one. Uh, then what happens is, if you see on the right side, the report says gap identified, impact, and agreed recommendations. So on the design level, whatever gaps are there, we put it, and then the impact of that gap and the recommendations. So that's how it looks like. Now coming on to the next slide, this is more like an internal audit report. So if you see we see the internal audit report, the components of the internal audit report, firstly, we have an executive summary in which we classify it as needs improvement or sufficient controls, or in those categories. Uh, then what we have is the background of the processes, like the scope of the audit, the background in which the audit was conducted. Then comes the observations. Then the observations we put in a concise manner. First of all, what are the observations and what is the risk rating? We also put the risk rating over there. Then we come to the whole slide in which there is observation, there is root cause, there is impact, there are recommendations, and there are timelines and action plans, which we have to put uh, in the audit report. So yeah, so that's about it. And like, this is like what an audit report looks like. It's just a kind of an example of the slides or in an audit report. It's always better, I would always suggest, it's always better to put in some graphs or some tables in the internal audit report, so that it is much easier to understand for the management. Now moving on to the next slide.
Uh, Anurag.
Yeah.
Yeah, one more thing I want to add it here. You have just go to the last slide. Yeah. You have started that in a illustrative deliverables. Initially, we should write down the executive summary, right?
Right.
Here it is also important that you should also write down the
Yeah,
methodology
correct.
of the audit, right? How an auditor has carried out that audit. What are the steps he has taken to carry out those audit, right? So that's equally important to write down in the final report. And it's always better that you should also write down the objective of the audit, right? Why you are carrying out that audit. So
Right,
audit
right,
objective and audit methodology both are equally important.
right, right.
I think which is missing in this slide.
Yes, yes. I think I've just kind of tried to summarize the points. So, that's how it
Okay.
happened. Yeah. So moving on to the next slide, it's more related to the audit methodology that needs to be followed. Uh, Next slide. And next. So this is basically like the approach and the methodology of the audit. So just move on to the next slide. Yeah. So first of all, the internal audit calendar needs to be finalized. That what will be the scope of the audit and what will be what will be the time taken for the audit, and which is what is the duration of the audit, in which duration the audit will actually take place. Then we come to the on-field review. The on-field review, as it is, we all know, it starts with the process walkthrough and understanding the process, understanding the SOPs, and then uh, uh, taking the kind of an initial data requesting for the data, and then performing some kind of initial data analytics. Then what is there is that after we take out the sample and do the testing and everything, and perform the audit, then we during that only, if we come across issues, we prepare issue sheets. These are not like observations, because in the sense that these are prepared either in Word or in Excel, and these are just initial findings or your queries which you need to discuss with the process owners. And uh, so you discuss these with the process owner. Sometimes uh, there is a reason behind the gap, and it's dropped from the report. But sometimes what happens is the observation is correct, and you have to dig deeper into the observation to find out the root cause. Then there is an audit closing meeting. So this audit closing meeting, I mean meeting with the control owners and the department heads, and clarify whatever doubts you have, whatever queries you have. Then you have to issue the report. Now this step number 5 is different from step number 3, in the sense that the step number 5 is a PPT report. It is the report which we had discussed in the last slide about which has the risk, risk rating, the root cause, the recommendations, and the observation is in much more detail. So this is the audit report, and we have to take the for all the observations we need to take a kind of an action plan to remediate those risks with the process owners. So this we do after this report is made, and then what we do is we present the audit report in the audit committee meeting, uh, and whatever their point of view is, we incorporate it, and then the implementation or the follow up, that means the whatever action plans we had decided in the report, we do a follow up if those action plans actually have been implemented or not. So that's like the IA methodology. So moving on to the next slide. So so this is more of the approach of internal audit. So first comes the risk assessment. So first of all, as I already said, we try to understand all the processes or the process in the organization, and try to identify the risk associated with the process. We kind of make a risk register, and also we align risk rating for the for each of the risks, and also uh, after doing this we it also helps in making the audit calendar, like how much time it will take for the audit, and you know, how much time and effort it will take for the audit and the field work and the report closing and everything. Then comes the risk mitigation. In this, what we try to do is we try to understand the as-is controls in the organization, and try to also identify the controls, the mitigating controls for the risk. And then, as it is, we prepare the report, do the audit fieldwork, and prepare the report and present it to the audit committee. And then, as a last step, we do a follow-up for the recommendations that we have, and take a status if those recommendations are implemented or they are still open.
So we move to the next slide.
Yeah. So this is more of continuation of the IA methodology, where we need to plan the audit at the first step, and planning is just to kind of as a first step conduct process walkthroughs, understand the process. In the second step, uh, ask for some data and do a preliminary data analytics on the data that you are getting, and try to understand data. And then in the third step, you do a testing, and then you prepare an exception report for the management. So for example, if we say the procurement to pay process, if we take, so under a vendor master analysis or a vendor master review, uh, uh, what we can check is for the the vendor duplicate vendors, like if there are in the data, if we have the same vendor ID or the vendor number for two or more vendors, that's the sign of a duplicate vendor. Then we can check for duplicate bank account number, for duplicate VAT, and the stuff. So these are what we need to define in the audit plan or the audit checklist, what we say. This we need to define in the audit checklist. Similarly, for duplicate payments, so we can check for invoices from the same vendor on the same date and for the same amount. So this will help us identify the duplicate payments. then what we need to check for invoices with the same invoice number and the same vendor and the same amount. So those are the checks we need to define in our audit checklist, which will help us identify how much time it will take for the audit. So that was the whole, we come to an end to this presentation. And now whatever questions are there with the participants, we are happy to take that. You can type it on the chat box as well.
I don't see any questions, Anurag, right now.
Okay. No, I think there is one question.
Yes,
Yeah,
one
companies
question.
nowadays are reducing their budgets for IA. What to do about it? Well, there is nothing as an auditor. There is nothing you can do about it. If that's completely a management decision, if they want to reduce the budget, maybe there can be n number of reasons for reducing a budget. Maybe it's not their priority right now, having the COVID situation and the revenues dropping in. If the revenues are dropping, then it's not that much of a priority. The budgets, it's completely up to them. But the quality of audit, maybe the scope of audit reduces, but the quality of audit still has to be the same.
That's true, I agree. In terms of scope handling. Okay. So I think Sakit, Anurag did answer your question in terms of scope handling too. How do you consider fraud risk in your planning and scoping?
Yeah. So fraud risk are something which cannot be really predicted. It happens. It just happens, and we don't plan for a fraud. So audits are more of a preventive. Internal audits are more of a preventive measure to prevent fraud from happening. But fraud audits are mostly ad hoc audits, and even most of the times I've seen that third parties are requested to do these or conduct these fraud audits.
Yeah, just to add on to what Anurag said, fraud audits can be, like we try to mitigate them by the, past year experience. It can be more focused on those areas where the fraud has already happened. That is the best way to even, address them to the current fiscal year. I hope we have answered your question, Siddiqui. Do we have any other questions for the floor?
I think Tarun wanted to share some kind of an experience. If you want to, you can.
Okay, so according to industry it's news about I. So, cause of COVID-19, according to you, which industries are more likely to get serious about internal audit? Anurag, you want to take that question or should I take it?
I'll take that up. So, like COVID-19, after COVID-19, there will be a lot of stress on IT audits because most of the people are working from home, and every company will try to improve on their IT capabilities and to let their employees to ensure that their employees can work from home. And uh, for which the data security is also a risk. So, how companies will safeguard their data, they will have to make a completely new and much more robust strategy around it. So just that the scope of the audit or the areas will change, but industries would still be serious about IA. Controls are even more important, and automation is even more important now.
Yeah. And just to like a little add on to the industries, like we have a lot of focus on aviation industries, which are completely shut right now. There's a lot of impact of internal audit coming, and they've been asked as a consultant what do we do in the hospitality and every change like that. Okay.
So I think we are up with the time also, and there are not too many questions now. So thanks for your time, Vidhi, and thanks for coming in and uh, and addressing this session on my request. So I'm
Thank you
really
so much,
grateful
Anurag.
for
Happy
you,
to
and
be here.
the whole
Anurag,
group is thankful.
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tarun.
Before we leave, I have just posted one question, right,
Yeah.
in chat box. So
Yeah.
would you please answer that question, because it is equally important since I'm working in electricity distribution company, right? So
Right.
as we all know that electricity is very essential commodity nowadays, even in COVID-19 scenario also, right?
Right.
Right. So how auditor can save his job, right? How can an auditor or the internal report can show his importance to the management? Because nowadays, like process owners are not open for the audit, right? As in my company, we are like electricity distribution company. So other departments like business, O&M, they are like more concerned to their revenue collection part. So they are considering complaints of consumers rather than giving importance to the auditor. So how could internal audit save his job? Because people or management will consider internal or audit department as a cost center.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is that how we can
Yeah.
save a
Tarun,
job?
may I answer your question if it's okay?
Yeah, sorry.
May I answer your question if that's okay?
Yeah.
Sure. So, Tarun, the effectiveness of an auditor can only be pertinent if you are very effective in your work you are doing. So, right now, at the COVID-19 situation, you are supposed to come up with the innovative idea because every organization is coming with an innovative idea for audit. So, you
Right.
have to come with an innovative idea first. You have to come up with a more flexibility second. Find the procedures or the way to how do you can mitigate those risks. If you show that to the organization you have developed yourself in these adverse situations and you're versatile enough to be flexible, come up with a new approach, and you're not going with the traditional approaches, I'm sure the organization will understand that you're important. And the entire, the entire department will be praised for coming up with the risk at the right time. Then the time has passed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Mendirata, for the appreciation. Any other questions we have quickly? No questions. Anurag, we did a fabulous job in explaining what we wanted to, so there was no questions more than this. I like these kind of seminars when people don't ask questions. That means everyone knows what we are trying to say.
So, but thanks everyone for attending this session, and thanks you also for coming and addressing. And I think now, with regards to audit planning, many of the things are much more clear to us. And next time we make an audit plan, I think it will be much more easier for us now. First,
Yeah.
earlier we used to just start crying कि audit plan बनाना है कैसे बनाएं क्या करें क्या होता है इसमें, but now after this presentation things will be much easier
Yeah.
and much more crystal clear for me at least. So
Right.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah. Thank you, Anurag, and everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great evening and a weekend ahead, and stay so safe and stay home, please.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so
Bye.
bye bye everyone.
Bye.